Saving $10,000 in a year isn't always easy, but it's very doable and can take you pretty far when you're traveling. In the last video, we broke down how to figure out your sabbatical budget. You may have realized that you need less money than you thought. In this video, we'll help you figure out how to actually fund your plan. Let's start with the actual number, $10,000. The point of this number isn't that everyone needs $10,000 for their sabbatical. The point of this number is to find a clear number that you can target for your savings goals. When you have a clear number that you're targeting, you can actually save for that amount and not feel as stressed about it. When you know what you're saving, it's a lot easier to save it. $10,000 can cover several months of expenses in low cost of living cities. So just keep in mind, $10,000 right now, the way you live, might not seem like a lot of money, but $10,000 could easily fund 3 to 5 months of a sabbatical, 6 if you really know how to push it. So just have a number in mind. In this exercise, we're going to use $10,000 just so you already know what your goal is. We'll break that down. $10,000 broken down into the course of a year is about $833 per month. So your goal might be more than this. Just do the math based on what your goal is so that you can figure out what you need to save on a monthly basis. You might save more money on some months, less money on other months, but just having that goal in mind is really important for you so you know what you actually need to work towards. So some of the recommendations I'm about to make are based on several things. So spending less money, earning more money, or redirecting money that you're already going to make into a different fund. So first things first, what you're going to do is have a separate fund just for your sabbatical. This is going to be a high yield savings account that is separate from your regular savings account and ideally separate from any other accounts that you have, just so you're not tempted to dip into that money. So high yield savings account, these are plentiful. Don't go Bank of America, Chase. Look at maybe Capital One, Discover, or any other high yield savings account that's actually going to make money for your money. So you don't want to just put it into a savings account. You want to at least get some extra money out of it. So that's the first thing that you're going to do. And make sure you're doing this. Your regular savings or your regular savings, your sabbatical savings or your sabbatical savings. They should not commingle because that is not going to help you. It's actually going to be counterintuitive in the long run. So that's the first thing that you're going to do. Okay, so now that you've created that account that is separate from everything else, you need to actually put money in it. So perhaps you do already have money that you've designated for your sabbatical and you just need to move it over to that fund, but perhaps you're starting from scratch. When I was actually saving for my sabbatical, I did not start from scratch. I've been thinking about this for years, and what I really did is honed in on what I needed to do to aggressively save towards the last year or two that I was actually going to make plans to go on my sabbatical. First thing that I did is I automated monthly transfers. So I did not think, oh, at the end of the month, let me transfer money into my sabbatical fund. No. I had it set up straight from my paycheck. It went into a different bank account, and that's just what happened. I named it, I think it was just called Sabbatical Fund at first. Now I've renamed it to like Global Citizen Fund because now it's funding something else. But giving it a name, I actually like giving names to savings accounts. It helps you think about what it's for and it makes it easier for you to want to save. So save your money automatically. This is something that could easily net you $3,600 to $6,000 depending on how aggressive you are. Conservatively, if you put $300 a month away towards this, you're gonna have $3,600 by the end of the year. And if you want to be a little bit more aggressive and put $500 a month, that's gonna have $6,000 by the end of the year. So this is something I highly recommend that you do, just so you're not having to really think too hard about what you're doing in terms of saving money. The next thing I did, and I highly recommend this, is saving any extra money that you get. So bonuses, save that. Any sort of RSUs that get vested, go ahead and save that money. Perhaps your company has profit sharing, go ahead and save that money. Any raises that you get, the difference between what you were making before and what you're making now, go ahead and save that money into that sabbatical fund. If you're really serious about taking a sabbatical, you need to be serious about saving money. Third, this one is not everyone gets a tax refund, but this one is the easiest if you don't actually want to put the effort month to month saving money. So, any sort of tax refund that you get, go ahead and put that into your savings account for your sabbatical as well. So, I don't really know how much everyone else might get for a tax refund, but let's just say it's $2,000. So, put that $2,000 into this account. Same thing with your bonuses and any other like windfalls or raises. I don't know how much you're going to get, so just kind of do the math based on what is applicable to you. So I did do the math on all this based on like a $60,000 to $65,000 salary. So let's say your bonus is like $2,000 a year. Go ahead and put that into that as well. So next one, number 4, you're gonna sell unused items. So this is not necessarily the easiest thing to do, especially if you have to put in the effort to sell it somewhere. Facebook Marketplace exists, eBay exists, whatever it may be. But sell things like electronics, furniture, clothing, household appliances, whatever. Honestly, if you're going to be taking a sabbatical anyway, and you're going to take time away from your regular life, and perhaps you don't plan on coming back, you should just go ahead and be aggressive and become a minimalist. Go ahead and get rid of that stuff right now. So that's number 4. Number 5, this one for me, and probably for a lot of people, is the hardest thing on this list. And it's not enjoyable, but it can be very fruitful. Reduce your housing costs. So that might mean you move into a less expensive apartment, or that might mean you get a roommate. I know for me, I don't really want to have a roommate, so that's not something I would do, but I'd be more open to moving into less expensive housing. Where I am right now, as you can see, I'm on the rooftop of my building, so it's not the most affordable place in the world. It is amenity, it's got decent amenities. So this isn't the kind of place you should be moving to if you're trying to save money. So this is something you have to keep in mind. Are you used to having a lot of amenities? Are used to having a lot of things that you can rely on in your building, like a pool, a gym? Do you have rooftops? Is it in a nice neighborhood? Is it, super convenient? You might have to change your lifestyle quite a bit in order to save that money, but that doesn't mean you have to do it forever. So do this for 6 months, do this for a year, and then you'll have the money after that time because you're saving a lot of money. Where I live now is quite expensive compared to where I lived when I was saving for a sabbatical. When I was saving for a sabbatical, I lived in my house. I still have my house, but my mortgage was a lot lower than my rent is here. So ironically, a studio apartment is way more expensive than a 3-bedroom house. Whatever. But that allowed me to save a lot of money, and it allowed me to actually have that additional income coming in when I was on my sabbatical because I rent my house out. So it's one of those things where it's like you have to figure out what works for you. You have to really do that due diligence to figure out if this is an option that is viable for you or not. Reducing your housing costs, it could easily save you, $300 to $500. It depends on how aggressive you want to be. I would say at least you're reducing your housing costs. It doesn't make any sense to do it if you're not going to save several $100s. So just keep that in mind. Number 6, this one I think can be the easiest because it really will help you prepare for spending less money later on. Reduce your discretionary spending. So you might be spending quite a bit of money every month and you don't need to. Like, are you going to an expensive gym? Are you eating out all the time? Are you hanging out with your friends all the time? Are you traveling like 4 to 6 times a year? Like, stuff like that adds up. I'm all for traveling, but perhaps for this time period, you scale back what you're actually doing in terms of traveling. So, on a conservative note, reducing your discretionary spending probably can save you $100 to $300 a month, but that adds up. That's like $1,200 to $3,600 a month. Number 7, but get a temporary second job. So get a second job that actually works for you, or do consulting, like get a consulting contract, and that will bring in a lot of money. This I can't really put a monetary figure on because it does largely depend on your skill set and what you could get a second job or consult in. Number 8, take on gig work. or freelance gigs. So if you need a DoorDash, Uber Eats, you need an Uber, Lyft, whatever it is to make that extra money, you can do that. And for the most part, it's not something that requires you to have a set number of hours every week to do it. It is like very ad hoc. So that's something you can do for extra money. The last two I find to be actually the most helpful in terms of getting that extra money, but they're not the easiest because it does require either having money in the past or having skills to net you more money and putting in the effort to go out of your way to do this. So, number 9 is increasing your income through high paying roles or promotions. So, my last job prior to my sabbatical did pay a lot more than the job I had prior to that. So this allowed me to just save, I think at that point I was saving probably half of my salary, if not more, very easily. Promotions can do the same thing, but the reality is going from one company to another nets you more money than getting a promotion with the company that you're already with. So that's something to keep in mind. This obviously takes a lot more effort in this current economy, but if it's something you're already thinking about, go ahead and just do it anyway. Number 10, if you have investments, you can liquidate your investments and just use that money to fund your sabbatical, except your retirement accounts. Do not liquidate your retirement accounts. That's my only recommendation. Here's why. If you're saving money for retirement, that account is already designated for retirement. So you're going to be taxed when you take that money out, if you could even take that money out. And you're also lessening the amount of time you have to grow your money for retirement. So it does not really make any sense. Two things to keep in mind when it comes to liquidating your investments and thinking about that. Do talk to your actual accountant, like your tax accountant, and possibly an investment advisor, because depending on how long you've had those investments open, it could be taxed pretty heavily if you do just decide to sell everything. So consult someone. Don't rely on what I'm saying. Consult someone before that. More things to not do, and I highly recommend you don't do this. Don't sell your house if you're not certain of your future. If you might move back into your house and you own a home, don't just sell your house and be like, oh, I'm just going to use this to fund my sabbatical. That's stupid, because you have to live somewhere. And if this house was your main place to live, if you came back into the country and now you have nowhere to live, now you have nowhere to live. So don't do that. Don't do anything illegal. I'm not recommending you scheme, or do anything that's illegal, because do not have me in anything. Don't say I told you to do anything. And honestly, do you really want to go to jail when you just try to take some time off work? You'll really get some time off of work when you're in jail, but you don't want that kind of time off work. All right. Other things to not do. Don't borrow money, and do not max out your credit card just to go on a sabbatical. It means you don't have the money. It means that you're not capable of doing this, and now you put yourself in a bad financial situation just to do something that, yes, is enjoyable, is worth it. But if you can't fund it, it does mean that you just don't have the money, and you probably need to wait or figure out a different way to get the money. And last thing, do not liquidate your emergency fund. So if you have a savings account already, which you should have, and you have an emergency fund, don't liquidate that just to be able to say, like, hey, now I have money for my sabbatical. So don't liquidate that. We're wrapping up the video, and some things to think about, just some combination of things. So all of these things have different amounts that could possibly equal to a good sabbatical fund, saving that $10,000. And they all require different amounts of effort. These are kind of combinations I've put together that I think would be great if you really have the income, one, and the motivation and effort, two. So something to think about is like a moderate effort. Most people make a moderate amount of money and they're willing to put in a moderate amount of effort. So the things you could do to really accomplish that $10,000 goal without putting too much energy into it, but not too little energy into it, automating your savings. Definitely do that. I highly recommend it. Save any bonuses, any windfalls, any raises, any RSUs, any sort of tax refunds that you get. Doing those things, that combination alone, can save you a lot of money very quickly. So let's just assume you're getting a $2,000 refund. Check. Cool. Whatever. Maybe you're getting a bonus, $2,000 to $3,000. That's $2,000 to $3,000. Now we're at $5,000. And then if you're pretty aggressive with your savings and you're saving enough money, you can very easily have $5,000 by the end of the year. So all of those things right there will get you $5,000 by the end of the year. If you have a lower income and you just do not have the ability to do this as easily, you might need to change your time horizon or change your strategy. So something that you can do is trying to reduce those housing costs. If you really cannot have a roommate and you cannot deal with that, you need to find somewhere else to live that's a lower cost of living. Do keep in mind that if you do move out, further out of the city or further away from your job, now you're spending more time in traffic and you might be spending more money on gas. So do the math and consider the time. Time is money. So if you're wasting your time, it might not be worth it. But reducing your housing costs, that would definitely help. If you go ahead and reduce your discretionary spending, that will also help quite a bit. And then if you save your tax refund, because if you have a lower income, it's more likely that you're getting a tax refund anyway, and start selling unused items. In addition to selling unused items that you already have, you can start flipping items. When I was broke, I used to flip plenty of things on eBay. I'd go to the thrift store and I'd find things that I know cost a lot more than they're selling it for, and I would sell it on eBay and I'd make a profit. So you kind of have to have more of a hustle mentality if you do have a lower income, but you're still trying to save this $10,000. So keep that in mind. But again, if you reduce your housing costs, say $500 a month, that's $6,000 you're saving right there. If you reduce your discretionary spending and you're very aggressive about it, that's another $3,600 right there. So you're almost at that point at that $10,000 mark. So if you do those other little extra things like saving your tax refund, selling selling unused items, and also maybe flipping a few things, that will get you more money saved. So that's like a lower income choice, higher effort for certain, but it's definitely something to consider. So if you have a higher income, which a lot of people do, and they just don't have time, you have a higher income, you don't have time, you don't really want to put in the effort, say you really don't want to increase your savings, there are other options. So this is where you need to figure out a way to make more money, and you need to figure out a way to have additional income in your savings fund without having to do extra work. And what I would recommend here is get a higher paying job. Because if you have a higher income to begin with, it's very likely that you can switch to a new company or get a promotion and make a lot more money. And that is a good way to just go ahead and save money. So that difference between what you made in the past and what you made now, don't let lifestyle creep come in. Just go ahead and save that. And then liquidate your investments. I do not recommend this highly. It's possible, it's definitely something you can do. But if you're making a higher income, you probably also get bonuses and or RSUs. So just sell your actual stocks. So when you're getting stocks, they're vested, just sell them. I definitely did that. I didn't want to be tied to my old job in any way, shape, or form. So I just sold all my stocks as soon as they vested. So that's something you can do. Just keep in mind, these are just ideas to get you started. So take some time to come up with your own ways of saving money for your sabbatical. It's much like saving money for anything. You're going to have to actually think it through and think about what you actually want. Keeping the purpose of this savings goal at the forefront of your mind will make the sacrifices worth it. So if you're just saving money, you don't have an actual goal and you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, you're less likely to actually do it. So always keep your savings goal in mind when you're doing this. Once you do that, it makes it a lot easier to do everything else because now you're motivated. Now you know what you're saving for. Now you know what your actual end goal is. And now you have like this number in your mind, like, all right, I hit this, I'm gonna go ahead and take a sabbatical. And if you don't have that number in mind, it might be a lot harder and it might make you feel a less I wouldn't say just less motivated. It might make you feel like disheartened when you don't actually know what your end goal is. So do the math, figure out what it is, and save the money.